Hello and welcome to another video. So today we're taking a look at a different Lionhaven deck. It's of course very similar to the traditional Lionhaven decks, nothing too much changes. Whiteheart though is an addition you don't see too often and not one I typically use a lot, but when you do get him down and use him, he is a massive turn card, especially with something like Legendary Fighter, if you can combo those together. But of course the primary aim of the deck is to use the Saint Hares and the Temple Lions, mostly the Temple Lions, to really win games. So we're going to get right into it and check it out. So the first game we have is Haven versus Haven, which is not a big surprise as Haven is doing fairly well as far as things go in rotation, so no real shock there. Starting off with a pretty average hand, Black Inscripture, Holy Lion Crystal, Holy Lion of Salvation, no real bad cards, just kind of average. And this kind of makes up for it. Another Lion Crystal and a Temple is pretty insane, I would say. This has now optimized our starting hand to the point where we don't really need to worry, especially with Prism Swing, as that's going to allow us to get a crystal again. So we've got more crystals than we could possibly need at this point. The only other ideal situation would be to get another Temple. Fortunately, we didn't see that, but we are going to be able to go for the double Lions. Even if Black Inscription might have been the better play there. Felt like double Lions was going to be much more beneficial. Now we can actually go for whatever we want at this point. I mean, we can go for the Holy Lion Crystal plus the Prism Swing, which in turn does give us another crystal to work with, and the Evo giving us 4 damage to face. Not quite as good as going for Holy Lion of Salvation, but I still think, considering we're not risking losing that immediately, it was worth it. Now what we've really got left is to, of course, aim higher with swarming the board. The Holy Lion Crystals are still going to do a really good job of that, especially once Salvation hits the board. It sucks that they did heal the 6-5 though, because it does mean I have to trade in the 4-7 and then potentially use my Black Inscription on it. And we still want to hold them to at least 1 crystal, since that is kind of our massive win condition. The only time I'd be willing to give up a crystal is if I know I've got a chance of winning the next turn. Especially in a Haven on Haven matchup like this. Does look like they're playing a Mecha Haven. So Peaceweaver is actually a fairly decent opportunity to swarm the board with Holy Lions. It does of course waste our crystal, but I think this is one of those situations where it is worthwhile taking the risk when we can play Holy Lord next turn, which will pretty much give us lethal, and if not, it'll get us very, very close to lethal. So Salvation, Iron Knuckle none. 1 suicide would do the job, I think, actually, so that could be impressive. But that'll actually clean up the board pretty well, I think. You gotta sack everything, but I think that's worthwhile in this situation. Considering their odds of winning became fairly low. And all I can really do is counter with my own and trade it in, leaving myself with a 5-6 since we don't have another play yet. Although Peaceweaver is going to be very nice next turn, taking full advantage of it. They're not really doing much more though. They managed to of course kill off my Hector, and that's really about it. Saint Hares is a okay play on my part. I probably should have went for the Peaceweaver play, but I feel like going for small things across a wide board might have been a little beneficial. Even if it was a bit more risky, considering they're going to have an Aegis now, which is not a good situation to be in. But I think it was at the time worth the risk. Peaceweaver should at least hopefully buy us a turn. And since we are on the golden lions now, we only need to swing next turn. That's really all we need. And that was probably one of the best things for it to hit. Not that it would matter too much.
Someday the true
And considering this worked out pretty much perfectly, we're going to be able to trade this lion in, go for 3 Holy Lion Crystals, and win the game with 12 damage. Our setup ended up working out just fine. Exactly how this deck is designed to win games. Next up, we're up against Runecraft. Can't remember whether this was one of the quicker games that we had with this deck, but it was definitely a game, so we may as well put it in this video for you guys. So Runecraft can be hit or miss sometimes just because of the variations that they can run. So it's no surprise if we come up against something that might be a little tricky to deal with, especially when it comes to early or mid-game pressure. Sealed Tomb though is not a bad card for us to play on turn 1. It basically becomes a free draw. A lot of people do prefer to use it as a double draw, but me personally, I like to use it as a single draw in the early game a lot of the time, especially if I don't have any other play and I'm going first, since this literally is a free draw. Sucks they did annihilate our temple, but we do get to play another one pretty much straight away, so it's not quite as big a deal as I would have expected. Now we just need to be able to make this turn half decent, and I do decide to go for a double lion with a black inscription. I mean, if I can, why not? Hare's looking like a good play next turn, since we are going to be on the Evo, and dealing with this board is going to be pretty important overall, so definitely the choice that we want to make. Prism Swing though is actually looking a little more favourable, so why not take it? Plus we get to generate more Holy Lions, which can't really argue with that. And considering it looks like we are going up against, of course, full-on Mysteria, taking this game at this point is going to be important. We want to make sure they're trading mostly with our board and we're not trading mostly with theirs, because that will put us definitely at a massive disadvantage playing this deck. But it does look like we're going to have a chance to use Hares, which is great, especially since we do have another Temple in hand, so we can actually take advantage of that as well if we want to, or just, of course, spam a crystal to the board. If I had have thought about this a little bit more, I probably could have went for the White Heart, although I think getting the Temple down was definitely much more beneficial in this situation. Now that we've played the Triple Hare with boosters, it's going to be very hard for them to make a massive comeback. Especially at this point in the game, where really all they can do is start warding up until they can reach their win condition, which will most likely be Anne's Sorcery. Since that is really their only good win condition in this deck. So now we just start swinging. Go and open with these Holy Lion Crystals, spam the board as much as we possibly can, and pretty much force them out from here. Since we have a Peace Weaver, we're not too worried about using all our crystals. So right was a good play, but into a Light Mage that isn't going to allow you to do anything else isn't quite as great. They did end up conceding. I don't blame them. I mean, taking another lion and then going into our ward would have been rough either way. So if you guys did enjoy this deck, I still think it's one of the better decks to play at the moment in the current meta, along of course with a couple of Blood variants. Darkfist Bat and Mecha Blood seem to be doing quite well, of course along with Midsword, which unfortunately I don't get to play quite as much, although I do have a kind of jank version coming up soon, since I am short about 3 or so legendaries to really round out the deck, so I've got to shove in a couple of other cards. But if you guys enjoyed this deck, be sure to check out the link in the description below, hit the like button and subscribe for more content. Until next time guys, see ya.